Welcome to Ink It Up with Jessica TV. I'm Jessica Taylor, and in this episode, I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful butterfly card in a variety of colors and give you tips for coloring in the butterflies. I'm using the Butterfly Gala stamp set that coordinates with the Butterfly Duet Punch. And the fun thing about the butterflies in this set are that the two butterflies come on the same stamp. So this is actually one stamp, and it's perfectly placed so that when you stamp this, you can easily punch out both butterflies at the same time. So to do that, you want to stamp towards the bottom of your cardstock. And here I've just stamped some butterflies in the Memento Tuxedo Black ink on Whisper White cardstock. So you want to stamp down towards the bottom so that when you open your punch, you can line those butterflies up and punch them out really easily. Before I go to the punching though, let's go ahead and color in these butterflies. For the Highland Heather and the Daffodil Delight butterflies, I colored them in with the Stampin Blends. The reason I like to use the Stampin Blends is that they add a lot of detail in the coloring, so a lot of shading without it being a lot of work. When you're using the Stampin Blends, you want to make sure that you stamp with a water-based ink because these markers are alcohol-based. So opposites attract. If you're going to be coloring with alcohol ink, you want to stamp with water-based ink like the Memento Tuxedo Black. You also want to allow your ink to dry and really set before you start to color it. So I like to stamp my images and then wait a few minutes, maybe work on another part of my card while I'm waiting to color them in. For this butterfly, I started with the darker. You can buy them individually, the light and the dark, but I suggest you get them in the combo pack. They also have two different ends, kind of a bullet point end and a brush tip end. I usually prefer to use the brush tip end. But for this butterfly, I started by just using the brush tip to kind of outline some of the butterfly lines with the darker color. I really am not very exact with this. Then I'm going to come back with the lighter color and just brush over and kind of color in the entire butterfly. So this is going to kind of blend some of the darker shade of the Highland Heather marker, the outline that I did. It's just going to kind of blend it in and give the butterfly some nice shading. I am not a master colorer. In fact, I don't really like to color all that much. So I like to keep my coloring easy, and the Stampin' Blends do make coloring easy. You can absolutely get artistic with these and do lots more blending and leave white space so that it actually looks watercolored. Or you can do what I do and just kind of lightly blend. And you'll notice that as the marker dries, it makes it look like I am a much better colorer than I am. If you go outside the lines like that, don't worry, we're gonna punch this butterfly out, so it's not gonna matter as much, but there also is a color lifter that you can use to lift up some of the Stampin' Blends colors. So that's how I colored both my Highland Heather and my Daffodil Delight butterflies. This stamp set also comes with the bold images, two bold images, to stamp the top and bottom in full color so that you don't even have to use a coloring tool. You can just use ink. So that's what I used for the Lemon Lime Twist card and for the Grapefruit Grove. So for these, just gonna ink it up. And then because these are clear stamps, you can see pretty easily where to line them up. And then you'll just stamp. So we'll do that for both the top and the bottom. These are much easier to line up when you're not on video, just so you know. I had no problem lining these up at all. But that's how I did the Lemon Lime Twist and also the Grapefruit Grove. The only difference is on the Grapefruit Grove, I added a little extra shimmer. I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to see it on the video, but I just took some Wink of Stella, which is just a glitter brush, and you can use that to color on some glitter. And it's not glitter that's gonna flake off, it's just glitter that adds a little extra shine. So that's another way that you can color in your butterflies. When I stamped my Balmy Blue butterfly, I thought it was just a little bit too dark for what I wanted for this card, so I decided to try something a little bit lighter. So for this butterfly, I did actually use the stamps to stamp in the background. But for this one, I grabbed some scratch paper and stamped off first so that it would just make the ink a little bit lighter. And then I'll do the same for the top. This is a great way to stretch the ink pads that you have. If you stamp them off first, you're always going to get just a little bit lighter color. So you can see that that's just a little bit lighter blue than if you stamp it full strength. Then to give it a little extra interest with some shading, I opened up my ink pad, and if you squeeze, when your ink pad is closed, if you kind of squeeze the top down, you'll get some ink pooled in the lid. And I just took a blender pen to pick up some of that ink and then use that to color in just a few of the sections of the butterfly to just add a little bit extra balmy blue to make certain parts of the butterfly a little bit darker. So you can do that to as many sections as you want, or you could do kind of like we did with the Stampin Blends and kind of outline some of the sections, whatever you want to do. And then once you have it colored in how you like, just run your blender pen off on scratch paper so it's ready to use with another color later. And that's my butterfly. I did also add the wink of Stella to this one. Again, not sure if you can see it on the video. Once you have your butterflies colored, you're going to want to go ahead and take your black ink pad again. And there's just this little butterfly body. And so I'm going to ink that up with the black. You'll notice that there is one end is a little bit wider. That's going to go on the bottom. Now, it's hard to eyeball it when you're going on the sheet because you're not really sure where your punch is going to punch it out. So you actually want to punch out your butterfly first. So I'm just going to line up my stamped butterfly in my punch it out, and then you'll see that there's just kind of a white space for that. I found it's easier if you put your butterfly on something dark like the silicone mat, and then it's easier to see to line up the body in that little center part. I think that the lights that I have on for my video is making me stamp a little off today, but you can see that that just kind of fills in the butterfly body like so. Then the last step is just to assemble our card. So I have a card base of Highland Heather that's 5.5 by 8.5 inches and then scored at 4 1/4 inches. A piece of Whisper White cardstock that is 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And then a piece of pattern paper that is 3 3/4 inches by 4 inches. So there is one more thing that we need to stamp on here, and that is our greeting. And I want to do that before I've assembled my card, even before I tape this piece down. And the reason is, if I make a mistake when I'm stamping or I get an extra little smudge or boo-boo, it's easier to turn the paper over or use it in a different way if I've done my stamping before I've glued everything down. So I'm just going to go ahead and stamp this on my white a little bit to the right side of my card so I have room for my butterfly over here. And then we'll tape this together. I like to put the silicone mat underneath where I'm taping so that if I go off the edge a little bit, it doesn't make my stamping surface sticky. So we'll just tape that right to the bottom of the white piece. And then I'll fold my card here on the score line, and I like to just give it a nice crease with my bone folder. Put that on the front of my card, and then finally to attach the butterfly, I'm going to use a glue dot. That way I'm just taping down the center body of the butterfly, and the wings can kind of fly free a little bit. It'll give it a little bit of dimension. So I'll just pop that up right there. So there you have just a nice variety of butterfly cards that say a little note. These would make a really great gift. I hope that you've enjoyed this video and that you'll give these techniques a try. Thanks so much for watching, and happy stamping.